The following program is made possible by the friends and partners of GodQuest Ministries.
Evidence of man and dinosaurs living at the same time, like together. From the CTN studio in Pensacola, Florida, this is the Creation Today show. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Hovind, and I'm joined by Paul Taylor.
And on today's show, we'll be talking to a very special guest, Ian Juby, and learning about his first-hand research on the geologic column, polystrate fossils, and we'll be seeing the work that he's done on dinosaur footprints.
If you have questions, this is your show. Send them into questions at creationtoday.org. Remember, we believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. Enjoy the show. Today we have a very special guest with us. Ian Juby is joining us via Skype. He is with the Creation Science Museum in Canada. He's got his own show called Genesis Week. Well, this is Creation Today, so Genesis Week is probably what? About 7 times better than this show?
It must be,
yes. It's got to be. Genesis Week is going to be pretty good. You can always find him on YouTube at Wazulu. And we're going to have to ask him, where in the world did that name come from? Wazulu. Must be one of his pets or something.
Is it some traditional Canadian word? Maybe?
They could. They got a lot of strange things going on up there in Canada.
They say things in a strange way there, don't they? Have an accent.
They do have a funny accent.
Yeah.
You kind of...
No, I don't have an accent.
I don't have an accent.
We have a language.
Yeah. We have a language, nice. Well, his name is Ian Juby. Ian, welcome to the show today.
Gentlemen, how are you today?
We're doing really well. Is it a little frigid up there in Canada?
It is, but that's okay. I'm wearing my nice fluffy panda slippers.
Well, that is awesome. All right, first and foremost, Wazulu, where does that come from?
Well, this goes back to the when I was teaching high school. This was back in the days when internet instant messaging was just coming out with ICQ. I don't know if you even remember that or not. Yeah. So I had gotten an ICQ account, and every username I came up with had been taken, right? And it was driving me up the wall. So I invented a name that I knew nobody had invented and had taken before, and it was Wazulu Himbob is the full name, and Wazulu just stuck.
So you're there. That's it from now on. You are Wazulu.
That's it.
Man. Well, users, good luck finding him, Wazulu, on YouTube. Well, Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know you've been studying creation for quite a while, and we've been familiar with each other for a number of years, and appreciate all the research and study you do and the information you present in your talks. Tell us a little bit about what you do real quick.
Sure, yeah. I started this about 20 years ago, actually. I was down at Last Days Ministries in Lindale, Texas, and we had a guy by the name of Dr. Carl Baugh come in, and we had a full television recording studio there, and this guy came in and did a 5.5-hour lecture off the top of his head on creation and evolution, right? And everybody, I don't know if you remember the Brainwashed track?
Yes.
You remember those, with the red cover and interview with Dwayne Gish, right? I had read that, and because I had been involved in science education since I was 16, literally, is when I started working at a summer science camp and worked there for 21 years. Well, because of my science interest, and I had read this tract, everybody thought I was the expert in creation and evolution, right? And so when Dr. Baugh comes by and just blew me away, I mean, I was instantly hooked. I just could not believe because what the problem was, I knew enough about the science that I knew what he was saying was correct. I had just never heard these conclusions that he brought out of the information. I just never heard this before. And I went to bed, frankly, that night. I mean, I was a Christian. I just never thought about creation and evolution. But frankly, I went to bed that night feeling like someone had lied to me. That's the way I felt. And so I wrote him a letter and volunteered to work at his museum for a few weeks. And it turns out that's when they were having the first annual creation, what do they call it? It was like a big event anyway. It was a big creation event there. It had 5,000 people come out to the first one. Wow. And so I volunteered there for 3 weeks and worked with them. And I wound up back in Ontario teaching at a high school. And my first year there, we had all these kids, these teens who were getting saved, and one of them decided he wanted to do a class project on creation and evolution. So he asked his teacher if he could have me come in as a guest speaker. Well, that was the first creation and evolution presentation I ever did, was in a high school class. And the students and the teachers loved it. And before you knew it, I was doing 3, 4, 5 presentations a year in these classes. And that was kind of how I got started in this. And so I quit that job at the teaching at the high school. It'd be about almost 7 years ago now. I've been doing creation and evolution lecturing and research now for 7 years full time.
Wow.
And throughout all that, these are only some of the exhibits of my traveling creation museum, which.
So you travel around with a lot of these exhibits right here to be able to show people firsthand some of the artifacts and the things that you got?
Yep. And travel all over North America. There's only a couple of states that I haven't been to, and 2 territories in Canada that I haven't been to yet.
Wow.
But, yep. And I love it.
That's really neat. Now so you speak on the topic. How much do you travel and speak? And I mean, how often are you out of the cold north up there?
Well, the first 3 years it was all in the U.S. It was crazy. But
did he just call the U.S. crazy?
He did.
I think he did.
Yeah. Anyway, we were also constructing Canada's first permanent creation museum at the time, which was the Big Valley Creation Science Museum in Alberta, and that was a 2-year project where I was there as well. So either I was traveling in the U.S. speaking, or I was working on the museum. For 3 years, it was literally I'd be home for maybe 1 or 2 months out of the whole year.
My goodness.
And I mean, I love it. I wound up living in the van a lot. But I really just love the lifestyle, and I just love what I do.
Wow. Well, telling people the truth really is encouraging, isn't it? I mean, we meet people all the time, don't we, Paul, that their eyes light up when they finally see how this information fits in.
Absolutely, and I can empathise very much with the idea of feeling that you were being lied to as well. That was certainly what came across to me when someone first hit me with the idea that this Bible I was reading was actually literally true at the point of Genesis. And Ian, tell me, you've been doing a video contest lately, haven't you?
Yes.
You've been collecting video entries. Tell us something about that and what the
okay,
purpose
well,
of that
basically, I have a series of videos that I started producing a couple of years back called Crevo Rants, or Creation Evolution Rants. We have a comedian up here in Canada by the name of Rick Mercer, and he would go out and he had Rick's Rant, and he would rant in front of the camera for 3 to 5 minutes on something political. So I took this idea and sort of ran with it and put a creation evolution spin on it. So I aimed for about 5 to 10 minute videos dealing with one specific topic. And I get into all kinds of fun, entertaining stuff. They're meant to be funny, fast, hard-hitting videos. One of the characters I have for those series of rants is a guy by the name of Captain Intaginator. And he was actually inspired by the guy who built the Big Valley Creation Science Museum. That's what we nicknamed him. And so he's got his own superhero costume and everything.
Captain Intaginator. He's got a few replications with it there, huh?
Yes, there are, yes. So what the contest is called the Epic Evolution Ponage Contest. And basically, we just encourage new YouTubers, Christian and creationary YouTubers, to produce videos, get their names out there, get some viewership on their channel, get some subscribers, hopefully. And so we invited them to submit a 2-minute video, either proving creation or disproving evolution, either way. And we had 43 videos submitted, I think, for the contest. So we're going to have the winner announced here in the next 2-3 days or so.
And people can go to your YouTube channel, Wazulu, to check that out. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, well, you guys will enjoy going to Wazulu to check that out. Now, some of the things we want to get into with Ian is the controversial artifacts in Glen Rose, Texas, but we're going to have to do that in another segment. Right now, we got to take a break.
Welcome back. You're watching the Creation Today show with me, Paul Taylor, and with Eric Hovind. And we're talking to our very special guest today, Ian Juby, and we'll be returning to talk to him in just a moment. But first, let's just remind you a little bit about some of the things that are going on. For instance, in October of this year, 2012, we'll be having the Proof of God conference.
That is going to be awesome. I'm telling you, people are getting excited about this.
It is going to be very exciting. There's a lot of buzz about it on Facebook and elsewhere. And you can find out all the details about how to book that. And where it is in Orlando, in Florida, at proofconference.com.
Proofconference.com.
And there's going to be some great speakers there. We'll have Cy ten Bruggen, Kate. We'll have Mark Spence from Living Waters. And we'll have Carl Kirby from Reasons for Hope Ministries. And it's going to be very exciting.
Really
There's going to be a chap there called Eric Hovind.
Yep, he's going to be there.
Yep.
Lord willing. And then Paul Taylor, he's a guy with a cool British accent. So anything he says sounds smart. So you're going to want to come hear him talk.
That's going to be exciting. But you know, there's never been a better time than now to go and have a look at things in the Creation Store.
That's true. I'm telling you, the Creation Store is awesome. We got a brand new dinosaur ride there at the local Creation Store in Pensacola, Florida. 18-foot long, Apatosaurus with a saddle. You get on it if he's friendly and take him for a little ride.
You know, we're going to get all sorts of criticism from evolutionists thinking that we believe that all dinosaurs had saddles.
Yeah, and that dinosaurs lived with man. I mean,
well, the second bit's true, but you know, it's just a bit of fun. But you know, if your kids want to come along and ride a dinosaur, then
come on over.
It's very, very realistic. So,
it really is. Hey, also want to highlight a ministry. Some friends of ours up in Akron, Ohio, the Akron Fossil Center and Museum. A friend of mine, Josiah Detweiler, is the manager there at the museum. And if you're anywhere in that area, I'd really encourage you to go check out the Akron Fossil Museum. Check out their website. I'm on it right now, akronfossils.com. And go there and check out some of the things they do. I'm just really excited about all that they're putting together. The shows, they've actually taken over the fossil replication and are actually doing fossil replication now as well. So you can see some of the stuff that they do there.
For the sake of foreigners like me, Akron, how do you spell that?
A-K-R-O-N.
A-K-R-O-N, fossils.
Would you say that the same as a Brit?
Yeah, I'd say that the same.
Akron, a little accent? Akron. Well, it's not like a Canadian accent. Them guys are hard to understand. And with us, we've got Ian Juby, who is from the cold tundra up there in Canada.
And he's not wearing a sweater, is he?
Is that a sweater?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Got no scarf on, no woolly hat.
But I have my fuzzy panda slippers on. That's all that matters.
That's all you need. Well, Ian, thanks so much for joining us. We want to get into some of the controversial stuff of the dinosaur tracks found with human tracks in Glen Rose, Texas. I know you've done a lot of study there. Before we get there, though, tell us a little bit about, I want to talk about the geologic column, because there's a lot of people out there that believe the geologic column has been proven to be, realistic and millions of years old as you go through the different layers. So let's talk about that. Can we discuss that real quick about the geologic column? There's a lot of confusion out there on that. Does it exist? Does the geologic column actually exist anywhere?
Sure, it does. It exists in two places that I know of, textbooks and museums.
Those are the two places you'll find the geologic column. So the geologic column that we had to learn in school, you had to memorize all the layers and then forget it the next day after you took the quiz, right? Unless you taught science like you guys. All those layers, that in that order, that doesn't really exist anywhere in the world except for textbooks, museums, places that show that diagram.
Exactly, because you've got, first of all, for Grand Canyon, for example, it's a very prominent layering system that you can see, but when you actually map out the layers, there's huge time gaps in between the layers, typically hundreds of millions of years, where there was just zero deposition.
That's because of erosion, man.
Apparently. That's a lot of erosion. Because you've got 500 feet of one formation, which was about 200 million years, and then hundreds of millions of years is just gone.
Totally
absent, missing without a trace.
What do the evolutionists say about this? How do they try to account for all the missing material there?
That is exactly, actually, your answer was exactly what I got from Dr. David Corner during my debate with him. He's a geology professor at Northern Arizona University. And that was exactly what he said, was the dirt's just spread out over Nevada, California, etc.
It's just eroded.
With respect, no, it isn't.
We don't see that, do we?
So It just isn't. But it's not just the missing time. We have literally hundreds throughout North America. I've now gotten to study 7 of these locations out of hundreds. What geologists call overthrusts. Now, my question is it really an overthrust? What they're saying.
Now, what is an overthrust, first of all?
Yeah, this is where you have, for instance, a rock layer that might be 300 million years old sitting on top of a rock layer that's supposed to be 100 million years old.
Right.
Oh,
they're
it's
reversed.
Backwards. Okay.
Yeah, there's backwards. And so what the geologists have done to attempt to explain this is they claim it's an overthrust, where the 300 million year old rock slid up over top of the 100 million year old rock. That's the claim. Now, I'm not opposed to the idea of there being an overthrust. We see incredible tectonic activity around the world. Why not, right? Yes. So what I did was I went and investigated several different locations. There was one in Arizona just south of Tucson. There was 2 locations in Nevada just outside of Las Vegas. One was a Valley of Fire. This is what's called the Keystone Overthrust. It's a very famous overthrust. And Red Rock Canyon.
I've been there, yeah.
There was also 4 that I investigated up in Alberta and BC, and some of these are just brutal to get to. Oh wow!
You had to take the
climbing
sneakers
up
to those, huh?
Oh yeah. You got to be determined because it was about a 4-hour hike ascending about 5,000 feet in Banff to get to the one, and the last section I really wasn't sure I was going to make it, but I made it barely. But basically,
tell us what you found there. What was it that you discovered?
Okay, well, what do you find when you get there? If the rock layer slid up over top of the other, well, the first thing you'd expect to see is scratch marks, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if the rock slid over top of the other, you'd expect scratch marks. And geologists call these slicken sides. There's actually a technical name for them. What I discovered was there was no slicken sides anywhere at any of the 7 locations I went to.
No slicken slides.
One. None whatsoever. Secondly, when you do the math, up in Banff, for example, the Castle Mountain Overthrust and the Yamnuska Mountain Overthrust, you're talking 1,000 feet of limestone and 2,000 feet of limestone in these formations that allegedly slid over top of the other. Well, when you do the math in physics, that is so much friction and heat, it would melt the rock.
Wow.
Forget about scratching it. It would melt it. And there's no evidence of heat. No evidence of, the only evidence of metamorphosis is local, which is where the rocks have actually shifted vertically relative to each other.
Right.
In other words, there was no evidence that these rocks slid over top of the other. That's what I found.
Now, not only that, they also find polystrata fossils, correct?
Yes.
And those are actually fossils that are running up through several layers of sediment.
Yes.
And are those found all over North America?
All over the world.
All over the world. I want to talk about that. We're going to have to take a break here in just a second, but I want to talk about that. And coming up after the break, we'll talk to Ian about some of the polystrata fossils that have been discovered around the world, connecting all these layers that are supposedly millions of years old. Not only that, but I still want to talk and see some of these footprints from Glen Rose, Texas, where man and dinosaurs are supposedly walked together. And we'll talk about the controversy surrounding those as well.
Join Eric Hovind and Paul Taylor from CreationToday.org, along with Carl Kirby of Reason for Hope Ministries, Mark Spence of The Way of the Master, and Cy Ten Bruggencate of ProofThatGodExists.org for the Proof of God Conference in Orlando, Florida. For more information, visit ProofConference.com. That's ProofConference.com. Or call toll-free 1-877-479-3466.
Welcome back. You're watching the Creation Today show with Eric Hovind and me, Paul Taylor. And we're talking to our special guest, Ian Juby, and we've been discussing the geologic column, which exists in a couple of places in the world. Yeah. That is to say, it exists in museums and it exists in textbooks. Actually, I have to say that there is another place where it exists, actually. It exists in the minds of geologists, certain geologists. And you know that, if I can speak to young people a minute, you know you're going to come across this, you're going to come across it in your textbooks. We've talked a lot on this show about making sure that you are respectful to your teachers as you address these things, and you're going to need to learn about these things. It's quite often quite useful to learn these things, remembering that you don't have to accept them as true. Right. And when you're answering about those in quizzes and exams and so on, remember you can do that with integrity, you can do it with honesty, you can say many scientists say that or whatever. Please don't think that these things are true just because somebody in authority says them. If they're in authority, you speak to them with respect, you deal with them with respect, but remember that not everybody in authority is going to tell you what's true, but God's word is always true.
I love that. I love that. We're joined today with special guest Ian Juby. Thanks for being with us again on the show today, Ian. Okay, I want to get to the controversial issue here of the footprints in stone, the dinosaur tracks and human tracks that are apparently found together in Glen Rose, Texas. I've never had the opportunity to look at those personally. You have. What do you think? Is this the proof that we've been looking for? Is this it? Man and dinosaurs live together?
Right. Well, and see, this is the thing, too. It drives me up the wall when reporters talk about creation or creation evidence, such as dinosaurs and humans being together, being controversial. No. Let's lay the blame where it is exactly. The only thing controversial here is the theory of evolution, which defies scientific and natural laws. True. They teach it as fact in the high school, and within that week, they'll be teaching the students the scientific and natural laws that evolution must defy in order to even exist. And the only reason evolution has even existed in the schools is because it hides behind judges, lawyers, and school policies. That is the only reason evolution has survived. Evolution is what's controversial here, not creation.
He's saying it like it is, and he's up in socialist Canada, isn't he? Man, go Ian. All right, so the tracks that are discovered there, here, I mean, my dad has talked about them for years. Here you have, for example, the Caldwell track, which is the human footprint that was apparently found right there in stone. First of all, a little background on the Paluxy River. Back in 1908 is when it flooded and revealed all of these, took the bottom of the riverbed off, revealed all these dinosaur tracks, and what many people claim are human footprints right next to them. What do you know about them?
That was only one of many flash floods. Now, I've spent hundreds of hours in the Paluxy riverbed. That's the only river in the world I've ever seen go up about 20 feet in depth in one rainfall. It was the most incredible thing to see. And these flash floods literally do just that. They rip up car-sized sheets of rock, rip them up, and expose new tracks. And 1908 was one of the times when they first discovered those footprints. Now, you mentioned the Caldwell track. That's actually a good one to start off with. That is a cast of the Caldwell track right there. Okay. And the Caldwell track, I actually only talk about this because it's a good talking point. We don't have the original, so we can't verify whether it's authentic or not.
That's probably why there's controversy around it, obviously.
And just because someone claims that they've got a fossil human footprint, that doesn't mean I go and jump on the bandwagon and believe it. For example, this past week, a video appeared on YouTube in South Africa showing a giant, what they claim was a fossil human footprint.
The 4-foot one, yeah.
That's the one. And I actually, on my show just this week, went on record saying, no, it's not a fossil human footprint. Yeah. For multiple reasons, I say that. And I won't go into details here because that's kind of a side note. But I typically get about 1 to 3 requests per year to come investigate alleged fossil human footprints.
So tell us about these. What do we know about these footprints with the dinosaur footprints?
Okay, this one was from geologist Billy Caldwell. He made a cast of a track that a local Glen Rose resident wanted to sell him. He didn't want to buy it, but he made a copy of the track. And Billy, the gentleman who wanted to sell it to him, sold it somewhere else. We don't know where. Apparently, Bernie Neufeld from Loma Linda University got a hold of the original track. And he actually produced a paper with several dinosaur tracks, the Caldwell track. I believe there was another alleged fossil human footprint he had as well. What he did was he cut the tracks with a saw to look at the laminations in the rock. What he's looking for is this was made originally in mud. If the human stepped in the mud, then they're going to actually compress and depress the mud, and so you'll wind up with these contours in the rock that actually follow the contours of the bottom of the foot. So when he cut the Caldwell track, or what sure looks like the original Caldwell track in his article, he said, look here, there's a lamination that ends abruptly. Now he's correct, but the lamination underneath did follow the contour of the footprint, and it's inconclusive because in Glenrose, the dinosaur tracks, the ledge of rock, for instance, sometimes breaks off and reveals the cross-section of a dinosaur track. These are genuine dinosaur tracks, but they show no laminations in the rock. So the lack of laminations doesn't prove that it's not legitimate.
Okay.
I guess the concerns that some creationist groups have is not that they would disagree that human footprint, that humans and dinosaurs live together. That's what the Bible teaches, but simply that there is enough doubt over these particular footprints for them not to be necessarily a useful piece of evidence for creation.
What are your thoughts on that, Ian?
Well, it depends on which footprints, because in some cases.
So tell us quick.
Okay, we'll have to come back to it.
We'll talk about it in another show. That sounds good. Okay. I see you also have some of the dinosaur footprints there, and that you travel around with. I want to talk to you about those too, if we can go do another show.
We'll talk to that next week's show.
That'd be great. Yeah. Oh, that'd be wonderful. Hey, some of you guys have questions. There is about this subject of the geologic column. One of the books that started the entire creation movement was called The Genesis Flood by Henry Morris, the late Henry Morris. Started the modern creation movement. Well, it has now been remastered, as for rewritten, and a lot of the same material.
Yeah. Well, this one is not rewritten. This one is the original, but it's in a new edition, the 50th anniversary edition by Henry Morris and John Whitcomb. And I've got an anecdote which I think I've shared before. It takes a bit of time, but it's about getting my copy signed. We've also got Earth's Catastrophic Past, which is the rewrite of the Genesis Flood by Dr. Andrew Snelling of Answers in Genesis. And published by ICR, and this is a marvelous book.
It is. It's a two-volume book that is really good, and if you're interested in studying more about the strata, the catastrophe, the obvious flood that took place, you really ought to check out some of those. Well, that is our show today. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Remember, you can always catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/Creation Today, or on Twitter.
Yes, you can at Creation Today.
And if you got questions,
you can email us questions at creationtoday.org.
Yep. You need to tune in each week to see if we've answered your question. We're getting to them as fast as we can. Thank you for bringing them in. And these are archived online at creationtoday.org.
Well, this has been a production of God Quest Ministries. Thank you so much for watching. Join us again on our next Creation Today show.
This program is available on DVD by visiting creationstore.org or by calling 877-479-3466. To order this episode, use the item number displayed on your screen.
Bob is the full name, and Wazulu just stuck.
So you're there. That's it from now on. You are Wazulu.
That's it.
Man. Well, users, good luck finding him, Wazulu, on YouTube. Well, Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know you've been studying creation for quite a while, and we've been familiar with each other for a number of years, and appreciate all the research and study you do and the information you present in your talks. Tell us a little bit about what you do real quick.
Sure, yeah. I started this about 20 years ago, actually. I was down at Last Days Ministries in Lindale, Texas, and we had a guy by the name of Dr. Carl Baugh come in, and we had a full...
Well, this is Creation Today, so Genesis Week is probably what? About 7 times better than this show?
It must be,
It's got to be. Genesis Week is going to be pretty good. You can always find him on YouTube at Wazulu. And we're going to have to ask him, where in the world did that name come from? Wazulu. Must be one of his pets or something.
Is it some traditional Canadian word? Maybe?
They could. They got a lot of strange things going on up there in Canada.
They say things in a strange way there, don't they? Have an accent.
They do have a funny accent.
Yeah.
You kind of...
No, I don't have an accent.
I don't have an accent.
We have a language.
We have a language, nice. Well, his name is Ian Juby. Ian, welcome to the show today.
Gentlemen, how are you today?
We're doing really well. As it's a little frigid up there in K.org. Remember, we believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. Enjoy the show. Today we have a very special guest with us. Ian Juby is joining us via Skype. He is with the Creation Science Museum in Canada. He's got his own show called Genesis Week.
The following program is made possible by the friends and partners of GodQuest Ministries.
Evidence of man and dinosaurs living at the same time, like together. From the CTN studio in Pensacola, Florida, this is the Creation Today show. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Hovind, and I'm joined by Paul Taylor.
And on today's show, we'll be talking with a very special guest, Ian Juby, and learning about his first-hand research on the geologic column, polystrate fossils, and we'll be seeing the work that he's done on dinosaur footprints.
If you have questions, this is your show. Send them into questions at Creation Today Canada.
It is, but that's okay. I'm wearing my nice fluffy panda slippers.
Well, that is awesome. All right, first and foremost, Wazulu, where does that come from?
Well, this goes back to the when I was teaching high school. This was back in the days when internet instant messaging was just coming out with ICQ. I don't know if you even remember that or not. Yeah. So I had gotten an ICQ account, and every username I came up with had been taken, right? And it was driving me up the wall. So I invented a name that I knew nobody had invented and had taken before, and it was Wazulu Himba.